Mizuno has arrived. This video is for all of those Mizuno curious people who normally run in Asics, Adidas, Nike, New Balance, Saucony, and you're wondering if you should pull the trigger on Mizuno in 2024. So this video is 5 full shoe reviews of Mizuno shoes, and I'm gonna cut them into chapters so you can move around. If you're interested in one particular shoe, you can find that shoe and just watch that shoe review. We've got first off the Mizuno Neo Vista, the Wave Rebellion Pro 2, the Wave Rebellion Flash 2, the Wave Sky 8, and lastly, the Wave Rider 28. Let's get into it. JK, actually, let me tell you how all of these shoe reviews are gonna go. First of all, I'm gonna give you my honest opinion. I've considered lying, and we're not gonna do that. I'm just gonna go ahead and be honest. Secondly, while I do believe that Mizuno has arrived, none of their shoes are without flaws. So I'm gonna give a very balanced review with the pros and the cons. Then I'm gonna tell you whether you should buy or no buy. And lastly, I'm gonna tell Mizuno what I would like to see in the next version and pretend that they watch the channel and that they're listening. Okay, now let's get to it, starting with the Neo Vista. This is a review of the Mizuno Neo Vista after exactly 224 miles. Check my Strava. Go ahead. Facts. Fact check me. Okay, so I'm not a spec guy. If you watch this channel, you know I'm not going to spec you to pieces, but I do want to cover some critical specs that are important and relevant and translated to the ride of the shoe. For example, there's 53 millimeters of stack in the heel. There's 45 in the forefoot for an 8 millimeter drop. The foam used is this new Inner-Z Next foam, which is mostly soft, but in the quantity that is in the shoe, also kind of bouncy. And there's a plate there, and then they have a smooth speed assist geometry. When you put all of those elements together, you end up with Mizuno's take on the Asics Super Blast. Now, what it feels like to run in this shoe. It's a very fun and exciting shoe. It's also pretty versatile. So how I've been using it, I've used it for recovery runs, daily training runs. I've used it for steezy runs, moderate pace to marathon pace. I've used it for a couple tempos. Last week, I took it out for a 20-mile long run. I suppose I could have just said I've used this shoe for everything but intervals. And for me, the best paces that I feel this shoe really excels at are the steezy paces and the marathon paces. It's like the bounce of the shoe really locks my cadence into a rhythm. And similar to the SC Trainer V1 or the Nova Blast 2 or maybe even the Alpha Fly 1, obviously the energy return isn't quite on the level of the Alpha Fly, but it's that same, it's the bounce. It's the bounce that just kind of keeps me moving along very efficiently. All right, now let's talk about the upper. And yes, I sit into a lot of these shots. Some of you have let me know that it does bother you greatly that I sit into so many of these shots. So I'm trying to do it as much as possible in this video. Anyway, we have a knit upper in the Neo Vista, which is, for some, a deal breaker. It's a love-hate. It's kind of a good-bad thing. So the drawback of having the single piece knit upper is that there's just not a whole lot of stability for the ankles. Not enough lateral, the side walls. I don't know what I'm saying right now. I'm trying to sound like the doctors of running. Anyway, it's not a very stable shoe versus a shoe like the Hoka Skyward X. If you are looking for something with more support in the same genre, I would recommend this shoe. It's low-key, it's an incognito stability shoe. It's bouncy, it's fun, and stability is nice. It just comes with a price. Weight. The Hoka Skyward X is a very heavy shoe versus the Neo Vista, which is a much lighter shoe. In my men's US size 9, it comes in at 9.1 ounces, and I cannot convert those grams to you off the top of my head. Now, that's all great in theory and on paper, but how did that instability impact my running in this shoe for 224 miles? Well, it didn't for most all of the runs, except for the long run at the 20-mile long run. Towards the end of that run, as I was melting away in this Texas heat and my form was falling apart, I found I had to put in some effort to just make sure I kept my running form stable as my body was collapsing. So that's the only run that I had issues with it. Now, who is this shoe good for? And this is a very important part, which is why I've moved my face closer to the camera. This is going to apply to all Mizuno shoes that we're talking about today. The Neo Vista is better for smaller runners versus bigger runners for two reasons. Number one, Mizuno is a Japanese company, and they've been making running shoes for Japanese runners for close to 100 years. The average height of a Japanese man is 5'7". The average weight of a Japanese man is 138 pounds. For context, I am 5'7", and I weigh 149 pounds. So I am right in Mizuno's wheelhouse. Yes, I'm almost Japanese. And the second reason why it's better for lighter runners is because of the Inner Z Next foam. I always want to say Inner Z Next percent. It is not the Next percent. It's just Inner Z Next, and there's no E in there. It's just NXT. And what it feels like underfoot, this Inner Z Next, is that it's very soft and also bouncy. Like I would compare it to, anytime I compare this shoe to something else, it's going to end up being oddly very specific and obscure, because unless you've run in the shoes I'm about to mention, then you're not going to understand what that feel sensation is. I can't help myself. I'm going to compare it. Okay, the New Balance SC Trainer version 1, that fuel cell formulation that's in there in the Rebel V3, somewhere between that and the New Balance fuel cell formulation found in the V2, which was much, much softer. That's where it is. And what it feels, it's soft, but it also has some bounce for lighter runners. If you're a bigger runner, I feel like the Inner Z Next is just going to compress, and it's not going to quite spring back the way that you'd like it. And so therefore the use case for this shoe is going to be more just everyday running, easy days, and more recovery runs. Briefly, on the outsole, this is the worst outsole that I have run in all year. And it sounds harsh, but really, I would not recommend this in inclement weather. It's a little slippery, and there's not much of it because they have this big cutout, so there's not a lot to grab the ground. Heads up. Okay, notes for Mizuno and the final verdict. Would I buy it? Notes for Mizuno, two things. Mizuno, okay, I'm going to sound like Seth more. He always talks to the brands. Okay, Mizuno, okay, you're doing good, Mizuno. One, the outsole, I would make it grippier. Mizuno and all the other shoes that I run, I feel like there's a different outsole compound, a lot of varieties. Mizuno has any of that would be stickier or better than what is found on this shoe. The second thing that I would like to see is some slight stability elements added to the shoe. Nothing like the Hoka Skyward X, but a step in that direction. Something a little bit more like the Super Blast, which is still on the top of the pyramid in this particular genre, the best super trainer out there. Now, the Mizuno Neo Vista retails at $180, so it would be $20 cheaper than the Super Blast. I was sent this shoe by Mizuno. I bought many of these Mizuno shoes. This one happened to be sent to me, but I would have paid $180 for it. I will buy $180. I will buy version 3 for $180 if it's at that same price. This is a review of the Mizuno Wave Rebellion Pro 2. I have run exactly 99 miles in this shoe. If you don't believe me, check out my Strava. Okay, I will let you know and come back after 100 miles for the 100-mile review, but in the meantime, let's just get into the shoe. Now, what we talk about when we talk about Mizuno running shoes are heels, okay? Because I would categorize Mizuno into two different categories, heels and no heels. And the Mizuno Wave Rebellion falls into the category of no heels. Now, obviously, there is a heel, okay? But there's this very aggressive heel bevel in the back. And why they do that is because the World Athletics requires a 40 millimeter drop, which is measured here, right? But then you can put more foam in the middle, and that doesn't count. So you've got 48 millimeters here, 46 millimeters here for a 2 millimeter drop. So Mizuno getting crafty, working around the rules, and I'm here for it. Now, what does this mean for you? Well, if you're a heel striker, it's not ideal, okay? It's not impossible, it's just not ideal. Me, personally, I'm a midfoot striker, so it's almost like this shoe was meant for me or designed for me. It's almost as if me and Mizuno are soulmates. What? No, baby, it's a shoe company. Baby, it's a shoe company, I promise. Anyway, there are two foams in here. We've got the Energy Light and the Energy Light Plus foam. And as with most Mizuno shoes, there is a wave plate. This one is carbon infused, like all good super shoes. We got some carbon in there. And what all of that translates to is a very responsive ride, especially when I just tap down. I feel like the faster I go in the shoe, the more energy accelerates and comes back to me. So I have a 5K PB in the shoe. I have a 10K PB in the shoe. And it's designed for the marathon, and at marathon paces, it also feels really good. It's the geometry of the shoe that really feels like it's pushing me forward. It's very aggressive. If you like very aggressive shoes and shoes that are pushing you forward, I highly recommend that you try this shoe out. And now for another important message, which is why I've moved my face closer to the camera. The fit of all Mizuno shoes or a half size longer. I normally wear a US men's size 9. In Mizuno, I wear a 9.5, and they all fit wonderful. Buyer beware. All right, now I want to return back to the midsole and what it feels like to run in this shoe, because depending on how you land, whether you're a heel striker, midfoot, or forefoot striker, it creates a different ride experience. Okay, because when you land from the heel, you're going to experience something like a speed bump sensation, which I've also mentioned in other shoes like Skechers. Though, no disrespect to Mizuno, okay? Like, this is super foam in here. It does not feel the same. In the Skechers shoe, it's irksome, and I would rather not run in it, so I don't, but I could tolerate it. You almost don't even notice it in the Mizuno shoe, which is why I say if you're a heel striker, it's not ideal, but you can manage. But if you're a midfoot striker, you're landing here and getting that roll forward. And if you're a forefoot striker, you're not going to even notice it at all. Okay, Mizuno G3 rubber outsole is fantastic. This stuff does definitely grab the pavement. I just think we could put this on the Neo Vista, and I think it would be wonderful. Overall, this shoe comes in at 7.2 ounces in the US men's size 9. It is lightweight, it is breathable, as any good race day shoe should be. All right, for comparisons, guys, I'm gonna say it, I'm gonna do it. Alpha Flight Killer. Yeah, it's an Alpha Flight Killer. I know the last time I said that, I told you it was the New Balance SC Elite V3. Okay, a foot in the mouth. All right, I was wrong on that one. I just got that shoe to 100 miles today, finally, and I'll make a follow-up review, and I'll take ownership of it. But this shoe is just as aggressive as the Alpha Fly 3. I get the same paces, the same efforts as the shoe. They remind me of, they have like a narrow heel, a little wider platform up front. They're both lightweight. They feel tremendous. I love this shoe. It is one of the top 3 of the year with the Alpha Fly 3. So do with that what you will. Take it with a grain of salt based on my previous shoe reviews. Now Mizuno, okay, my notes for Mizuno. I would say 2. I heard there's a version of this shoe that actually has the heel. It's like fully illegal, and I would love to test it out. I would love to run in it for the Marine Corps Marathon on October 27th. If you want to send me those shoes, that would be fantastic if they exist. I heard a rumor, because I'm a little apprehensive to take this to the marathon, because if my form breaks down late in the race and I start landing more like this and I've got to climb up over that speed bump, it just something to think about. Number 2, I would love to see the Energy Light foam go away and just have it all Energy Light Plus, which is PIBA based. So all PIBA all the time. Now I know that may cost more. I'm telling you, I would pay whatever costs for this shoe. I would buy this shoe. I did buy this shoe, and I would buy the next one. All right, this is a review of the Mizuno Wave Rebellion Flash 2. I'm just gonna call it a Flash 2 so that I don't snubble over my words this entire review. It's a speed day shoe. It's a super shoe companion to do your workouts in. Now, you may have noticed this shoe also falls into the heelless category of Mizuno running shoes. There are a couple key differences between the Flash 2 and the Wave Rebellion Pro 2. The first difference is gonna be in the heel bevels. One is more aggressive than the other, the Pro 2. I think it was like 11% and then 6% in the Flash 2. Where am I pulling that information from? I saw a podcast on the Doctors of Running with some of the masterminds of Mizuno, and they were talking about these differences. I don't want to put my foot in my mouth. I want to be accurate, so I'll link the video in the description below if you're interested in learning about the technology behind it. Now, both shoes have Energy Light Plus foam, which is the super foam from Mizuno, but the difference is the Flash 2 has just Energy foam as the carrier foam. It doesn't have Energy Light carrier foam. I know a lot of those words sound the same, but what does it even mean? Oh, actually, there is one more difference. It's a fiberglass plate in the Flash 2 versus the carbon that we find in the Super Shoe. Now, what does all of that mean? It means that the Flash 2 is a much heavier shoe. It is 8.4 ounces or 238 grams, I think it was, in my men's US size 9, which is not a very super heavy shoe, but for a speed day shoe, yeah, it is kind of heavy for a speed day shoe. And so that's gonna lead us into the ride and the use case for this shoe. I treat this shoe more like a daily trainer than a speed day shoe. Now, I've put over 60 miles in the shoe so far. I have done speed workouts in the shoe, and I have done a lot of daily training runs in them. The best use case for me is at steezy runs, which I would classify as a stout zone 2. I would say like a 70 to 75% of your heart rate. On that high end, I feel like the aggressive nature of the heel bevel and the geometry of the shoe just kind of keeps me moving along at a steady pace, and it feels really good at those paces. And now when I say speed work, I do mean more like tempo or threshold, not 5K or 10K. I found it to be a little bit too heavy for those paces, and I have other shoes that are better at those workouts. Now, would I buy the Wave Rebellion Flash 2? The answer to that question is yes, because I did buy it for $99 on Amazon. But would I buy it for $170, which is the price it retails at? And that's going to lead me to a comparison, because this Flash 2, the Mizuno, the notes I have is just not very flashy for being called the Flash. Okay, it's more of a daily trainer up-tempo shoe, and it reminds me of the Endorphin Speed 4. And I think that shoe retails somewhere in that 160 to 180 range. So it's priced appropriately, probably against the competition. I just, as a budget buyer, I didn't buy the Speed 4. So I think, would I buy it? I think the question should be, if you at home are watching this and you would buy the Speed 4 at that price, then I would buy the Flash 2 at that price. If you're like, yeah, Speed 4 is a little pricey, I'll wait till it goes on discount, then I would wait till this shoe goes on discount. Oh, lastly, one more note, Mizuno. There is a gap. This is a big one, okay? There's a gap. See, I got closer, just so you're listening. There is a gap. Today, guys, at home, I'm reviewing 5 Mizuno shoes that I've run tested. These are not the only 5 shoes that Mizuno makes. But of the 5 shoes that I've run in and I've tested, there's a gap. What there is not is a super lightweight 5K, 10K trainer, which I think the Flash 2 has potential to be. I don't know if Mizuno wants to place it where it is right now, or if they want. But if you removed a lot of stuff in there and stripped it down and just made it all of the juicy Energy Light Plus foam and made a super minimal upper, similar to like other companies, they've got the Takumi Sen, there's the Nike Streak Fly. I would love to see a Mizuno version of that, and I would totally buy it. Worth noting, you're probably already working on it, but just thought I'd let you know. Mizuno! This is a review of the Mizuno Wave Sky 8. I have put over 50 miles in this shoe. If you don't believe me, you can check out my Strava. Fact check me. Okay, guys, finally, a Mizuno shoe with a heel. The Mizuno Wave Sky 8 is a high cushion ride. Yes, high cushion, not max. It's a high cushion and a Whirlpool max cushion. Ghost Max, Hyperion Max, Mag Max, everything Max. Not Sky Max. This is high sky, sky high. We've got 42 millimeters of stack in the heel, 34 in the forefoot for an 8 millimeter drop. You've got the Energy Next, the NXT, making a comeback here. There's another Energy foam, carrier foam. There's no plate to put together with the wave plate design, wave foam design. You see, guys, this is why I don't do specs, okay? All the words come together. And I'm like, yeah, there's a shoe, there's a heel, there's a toe, there's foam in it. What I like to talk about is what it feels like to run in the shoe. What does it feel like to run in the Wave Sky 8? It is soft, it is smooth. It reminds me of a Diet New Balance 1080 V13. Now, if you get on Running Warehouse and you read the description, it says it's going to tell you high cushion and soft and stuff, but it's also going to say it's a shoe that you can pick up the pace in. And maybe you can, but I couldn't. This shoe really locked me in to just easy paces. So that has actually been my use case. It's just been easy runs. And I'm doing something now that I've never done, and I'm using this shoe to do it, which is that I'm starting my runs, even my daily runs, I want to start off at an easier pace. I don't want to just jump into it even at if it's a steezy run or a moderate run. I want to start easy. So I will run 3 to 5 miles in this shoe, and then I'll stop my run because I'm running around the neighborhood. And then I do a tire change and I switch my shoes. And that's not something I've done, but it's because this shoe keeps me honest. I can pick up the pace in this shoe. It just requires a lot of effort. And I have a little rule of thumb that I try to live by when it comes to easy running, and that's to run easy and not push the pace in a softer shoe, because for me, I really start to feel it like in my shins or like below the knee. I start to feel aches. So learn my lesson from the 1080 V13. I do not push the pace in soft shoes. Okay, final verdict. I really like this shoe, but I don't love it. Okay, and at $170, I really don't love it. Okay, because I wouldn't buy this shoe. And to be fair to Mizuno, okay, like the Mizuno or the New Balance 1080 V13, I didn't like that shoe either. And that retails at about $165. So the price of this shoe kind of comes in around the same price as those other shoes. But there's two problems with that. For me, one, it's one note. This shoe is one note. It's easy, just like the 1080 V13. And that's a high price for me to pay for a shoe that's only going to do that one thing. The other problem that I have with it is that for $10 more, you could just get the Neo Vista, which can also handle your recovery and easy runs and daily runs, but is more versatile and can do a bunch of other runs that you might want to do in your training. Okay, lastly, Mizuno. There's my notes to Mizuno section of the video. Mizuno, I would say what I would hope for in the next version is some sort of firming agent put into it so that the shoe becomes a little bit more versatile. I'm thinking Saucony Triumph, okay, some of the older versions of that. So I know people compare that to the 1080, but I feel like the 1080 just keeps getting softer and softer. But like the older versions of the Triumph, I felt were like a really good cruiser. And that's what I would want for this shoe. So you could take the Neo Vista for your long run, and it's kind of fun, marathon pace stuff in it, bouncy. But then you want to go for a long run, you're going to be on your feet all day, put it in Wave Sky 9, the cruiser. Just a thought. For the last Mizuno review, I'm going to be reviewing the Mizuno Wave Rider 28. Now, I have to tell you that the Wave Rebellion Pro 2 and the Flash 2 were purchased. I paid my own money for those shoes. The Neo Vista, the Wave Sky 8, and this shoe were sent to me by Mizuno. This shoe was sent to me the most recently as a consequence. I only have about 30 miles in the shoe. If you don't believe me, fact check me. Here's my Strava. You can follow along the journey. Now let's talk about this shoe. This shoe falls into the Mizuno I have a heel category. Yes, another Mizuno shoe with a heel. And before you tune me out, okay, you're like, oh, okay, the Wave Rider 28. And I know maybe I'm just projecting, but anytime I see a review of a shoe that's on the iteration number 736, I'm like, oh, okay, same as last year, rinse and repeat. This shoe is different than the prior years, and so we'll get into that really quick. For instance, in the heel, we've got the Inner Z Next. Mizuno just putting the Next in everything, NXT in everything, and so it gives it a soft kind of landing. And in fact, first of all, let's pull back. As the flagship shoe, it has a very traditional fit and a feel, which is that there's 41 millimeters of stack in the heel, and there's 29 millimeters of stack in the forefoot for a 12 millimeter drop. That's a big drop. Think Nike Pegasus, think Brooks Ghost. And I don't mean any disrespect to this shoe by comparing it to that if you didn't like those shoes. This shoe is different than those shoes, and we're going to talk about that. But for me, I personally like big drops. I know big drops get a bad rep lately, but for me, I like feeling like I'm tipping forward, and I like ground contact feel on my forefoot and my toes. So I like the feel of this shoe. Now here's how it's different. In the heel, like I said earlier, Mizuno has sprinkled in Energy NXT foam. It's like that breakout actor that's just now in everything you see. You're like, oh, Anya Taylor-Joy's in this? Yeah, you know, she's in everything. So the next foam, it's in everything. Okay, and for the upper, we've got a jacquard mesh. I don't know the difference between mono mesh, jacquard mesh. I just like saying it, so I like when companies make jacquard mesh, because then I get to get it on the camera and go jacquard mesh. Anyway, laces. They're way too long. I'm not gonna really gripe about it. I don't really care, but they're too long, and it's a little tight up on the arches of my feet. This is a 9, so I probably should go to the 9.5. So it may just be my sizing and not the shoe. For the use case, I'm gonna use this shoe a lot just for daily runs when I'm gonna go and run 6 to 8 miles. Currently, I'm in marathon training, so every day I'm running at least 10 miles. And 10 miles is about at the limit where I would put this shoe. So what I've been doing is, what I mentioned earlier, I'll take the Wave Sky 8 out for 5 miles, switch, and then do 5 miles in this shoe, just to also compare and contrast those two shoes. That's how I've been using this shoe. Now, for some of you, you may think this shoe is too firm because it has only 34 millimeters of stack in the forefoot. In the year 2024, that is low stack. And I'm not going to tell you that you're wrong, okay? Because some people think that about the Pegasus, and I understand. But I would say if you like ground contact feel, if you like to feel the ground, then consider this shoe. All right, the price for this shoe is $140. Would I buy it? I would. I put it right there with the Nova Blast for the SL2. All the daily trainers kind of come in right around there. The Rebel V4, the Mach 6 from Hoka. I would buy all of those shoes. So, you know, I'm not too picky when it comes into the 140 range, which used to be the 120 range, but now all of these shoes are 140. So I feel like it's appropriately priced. Lastly, we got to have the notes for Mizuno. Mizuno, if I were going to change for the 29 or the 30, what I would love to see is I would love to see maybe 2 millimeters of stack, a little bit of that Energy Next carried over into the forefoot. So similar to the way the Asics Nova Blast 1 transitioned to the 2, they put some foam up in the forefoot, and the drop went down just a little bit, but just 12 millimeter drop. So I mean, I feel like there's 2 to 4 millimeters to play with, and you would still feel the drop, and it would bounce along. Just an idea. Now, whether you land on your heel, your midfoot, or your forefoot, please consider striking that subscribe button. Okay, now it's time for my overall conclusion for this video and Mizuno. And when I say that Mizuno has arrived, and I go make a sparkling thumbnail that'll probably get a copyright strike, what I mean is I may be projecting my experience onto you. And maybe it's just me and Mizuno, our chakras are aligned. Okay, and for you, you have a completely different experience in Mizuno shoes. That is entirely possible. So take what I say with a grain of salt. Because do I think Mizuno is going to be, in my opinion, the running shoe company of the year? Probably not, but maybe they'll be in contention. And I'm really looking forward to Mizuno shoes in 2025 because they have arrived. And if you're new to the channel, this is important, which is why I've put my face much closer to the camera. There's this thing I do.
Keep the same energy. Work on being better when I'm 70. Your drip is just a water spring. You know I drip different, just the 7 C's.